Okay, so over the last few weeks, there has been some interesting conversations going on here on my channel, on my Instagram, like on all the places I create content about sponsorships and brand deals and where they fit in and how is best to do them and whether people like them or not, whether they cause people to like dip out of content. And really, like the main picture for me is whether or not they're even worth it. We're gonna chat about the good, bad, and ugly parts of sponsorships and brand deals. And I'm also going to share some tips and tricks on how to get sponsors, what all of this entails, and really just break it all down for you while also in kind of real time figuring out if they're even worth it. Hey, howdy, hey, y'all. Welcome back to my channel. I am Jessica Stansberry, and if you are new here, this is the channel you want to subscribe to. If you want to learn about like passive income, being a full-time creator, an entrepreneur, business things, it all happens right here every single week. So hit the subscribe button if that's something that seems to interest you. So yes, I'm wearing glasses. I never wear glasses, especially when I film because the light like hits and bounces off of them, but I never wear glasses in general because I can't friggin' see. I wear contacts like all the time because I'm blind as a bat, and glasses, you know, I can only see where the glasses are, and with contacts I can see like all directions. But you know what? Sometimes your eyeballs need a break, and today is that day. So welcome to my channel on the day my eyeballs needed a break. So if that wasn't a random tangent, I don't know what is. And it's actually really funny because I was just going through the comments on the My Channel is Dying video, which came out a few weeks ago, and y'all had some amazing feedback on, and that video has actually done really well. I plan to do an update and what I did differently in that video and all the videos that are coming out next to really turn my channel around, but that'll be later. But I was going through the comments on that video because that is where this conversation kind of stemmed from. And as I was going back through the comments, there was one person who was like, you'll just interrupt your sentences with like random comments about your hair or the light or whatever. And you know what? That's the kind of channel you're watching. Also, welcome to my brain. Anywho's, back to the subject at hand. Sponsorships, good, bad, ugly, all the things. This conversation was kind of brought forth because of the My Channel is Dying video, because I got tons and tons of comments that were like, I don't like that you have sponsors now, or I don't like the way you do sponsors, or I just don't like your sponsors, or why do you have to use sponsors, or all of these things that you guys had to say about the sponsors that I've had recently on my channel. And absolutely, I do think that, you know, there's a correlation between when my channel started dying and when I started having sponsors on the channel. But also, it's such a confusing thing for me because I watch a ton of YouTube. I probably watch more YouTube than I watch regular TV. And all of the creators that I watch have sponsors. And most of the creators I watch have sponsors that may or may not have anything to do with the content. And a lot of the creators have the same sponsor in every video because that's how contracts work. So when I'm getting all of these comments, which is kind of a double-edged sword because I didn't ask for opinions in that My Channel is Dying video about why my channel is dying. I know why it is/was, but everybody came out to tell me what I've been doing wrong, which is fine. It's actually great feedback. But when I'm seeing all of these comments about, you know, why are you doing sponsors? I don't like the way you do them. I don't like the sponsors you've been using. I don't like that it doesn't integrate. I don't like that it does integrate, like whatever. It really made me pause. And I went immediately to my community tab on YouTube and then also to my polls on Instagram. And overwhelmingly, people, for the most part, don't give a flying fart about sponsorships. They know that they're part of content creation and they're okay with creators having sponsors on their content. Now, that was about 80+% on all the polls I did, was that everybody was like, hey, girl, you got to make money. You do you. Like it doesn't change whether or not I watch your videos. But then there's, obviously that other 20% who either said, I don't love them, but I'll still support the creator. And then part of that was, it makes me just not watch the content. So the really interesting part about this is that of the comments that were trying to give me feedback about why my channel is dying, like 80% of those comments were like, I don't like that you have sponsors. But then when I did the polls, it flopped the other way. So anyway, it kind of just led me to this question of whether or not sponsors are good for a channel, like what are the bad parts, what are the good parts, blah, 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 and really made me dive deep into sponsorship. And I will go into more depth on this and why and all the things later on in the video. But for me personally, I had already planned to step back from the amount of sponsors I had, but especially with this conversation going, I was like, you know what? I think it's just time to not do sponsors. And the reason that's okay with me is because that's not where I make the majority of my money from anyway. Not even remotely. It's probably the smallest amount of money per month. And if it's causing my content not to do as well and it's not making me the most amount of money, then of course it's something that can go. Now I do have a few contracts I have to fulfill, but for the most part, it just means that I'm not going to be doing sponsors anymore here on this channel. Again, I'm going to tell you why and kind of what led me to that decision beyond this conversation, because it definitely wasn't just this when I get into kind of the bad and the ugly parts of sponsorships. So kind of the basic backgrounds of sponsorships and brand deals is, especially from a YouTube perspective, basically brands will reach out to you or you'll reach out to brands and they will ask you, you will ask whatever, however the scenario goes, to talk about their product or service in one of your videos for a certain dollar amount. So for instance, Sony is not a sponsor of this channel, but if Sony, because I film on a Sony a7S III, if Sony were to come to me and be like, hey, we'd love for you to talk about our new camera we have coming out, or just Sony cameras in general in one of your YouTube videos, because of that, in exchange for that, we'd love to pay you X amount of dollars. That is a sponsorship deal. They are very, very normal and very much so a big line item and a big way that YouTubers and creators in general, so YouTubers, Instagrammers, TikTokers, all the things, make money. And I've actually done an entire video on how to get sponsors, how to work with sponsors as a small creator, all of that stuff that I will link above. Wait, where does it show up? Anyway, I'll link it above somewhere where that happens up here, because I'm not gonna go in depth on that in today's video, but in general, that's how sponsorships work. And again, very, very normal part of being a content creator. Now, I personally have always viewed my YouTube channel as kind of an arm of my business. So it is a content creation platform to grow my brand. As I move forward over the last year or so, I've very much so shifted that focus, and I really wanted to treat YouTube as kind of the main gig and trying to kind of change my mindset around that, because I've talked about this before, but batching your content and doing the things that you do when you view YouTube as just a content creation platform is actually not good for your channel, and I might talk about that more in another video. But that's kind of been kind of the thought process over the last, I'd say 6+ months, maybe even a year. When I was viewing my YouTube channel as kind of a content creation platform to grow my brand, it didn't even make sense to have sponsors, because this content was specifically designed and orchestrated to get people on my email list, to get people to my Instagram, to get people somewhere so that I could then convert them into a sale, right? But as I moved more towards embracing my title as creator, as YouTuber, as whatever, sponsors made sense. Again, this was just a mindset thing for me. My income hasn't changed. The way I make money hasn't changed. It was more about just the way I thought about creating the content and that kind of stuff. But starting about 6 months ago, I started to say, hey, let's start to take on more sponsorship deals, because up till that point, I really didn't take on a lot of sponsors. Actually, I don't think I took on any, maybe 1 or 2 here or there. And I will say, as a content creator, I get pitched a lot for sponsorship deals, so it was kind of easy to find some sponsors to work with and to kind of seal the deal on some contracts going forward. So another piece you probably need to know about sponsors is that there are contracts involved. It is a legal matter. It is a transaction between 2 business owners, and because of that, y'all, there's a tractor driving up my road. We will resume this conversation in just a minute. Let me let that go by. Okay, tractor's gone. But with contracts and everything, some sponsors are gonna wanna do like one video. Some are going to want to do like one video per month going forward. Some are going to want more than that based on the package that you propose or that they want. So really for the last 6 months, I've had a big chunk of the content that I've put out here on YouTube be sponsored. So I would interrupt the video at some point and tell you about this thing. Now, here's how I personally choose sponsors. Now, I personally would never work with a sponsor that wasn't fitting for my audience, that wasn't something y'all could use, benefit from, love to know about, etc., etc. So we turn down 99% of the sponsor requests that we get. So the sponsorships I've had have all been things that I think my audience, you, would benefit from. But here's the thing. So I drilled down in some of the responses I got about sponsorships, and I was like, hey, wait, everybody on YouTube has sponsors. So is it just me that you don't like to see them from? Is it because I didn't have them for so long? Is it the way I do them? Like, what is it about the sponsorships here on this channel that is kind of rubbing you the wrong way? And there were a couple of people who said the same thing, and that was that the sponsor didn't like integrate natively with the video. Now, let's talk about that because again, I'm very, very picky on who could be a sponsor, who I would accept sponsorship deals with. And I wanted to make sure that they were very specific and useful for the viewer. And I also tried to integrate them with the video. So I would be talking about something where this sponsor could help, or I would be, making a point about this thing and this sponsor made sense. However, because of the way contracts are set up, you have to say certain things, present certain information, blah, 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 that obviously isn't just a like, oh yeah, I totally film on a Sony, but that's the end of the sponsorship, because that's not the way the contract is set up. But also, if I made sure that all of my content only fit my sponsors, because at this point I had contracts, y'all would have never gotten any content that was useful. It would have just been like, here's this thing about this thing or whatever. And that is not the game I'm playing on this channel. And again, it's not what I'm seeing from other creators as well. So again, kind of confused me, but I also kind of get it. Because I definitely have been rubbed wrong by sponsors before, and there's a couple of creators that have sponsorships where I just fast forward through them. And so I totally get it. It's not that I don't understand the thought process that sponsors are not viewed as well, but also it kind of confuses me because almost all YouTubers do it. So I get that maybe it's not ideal all the time, right? And so that's kind of how I pick my sponsors, when I started doing sponsors, the feedback I've gotten about sponsors, etc. goes. Now let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there's good and bad and ugly, I promise, okay? So we'll start off on the good note, okay? It's money. It's an extra stream of income you can add to hopefully your already diverse streams of income. It's another way you can make money on top of YouTube AdSense, on top of your own products, etc. And to be completely honest, in the definition of the word, it's a fairly easy way to make money as well. So of course that's a good thing because we're making more money, and when is that ever bad, right? Another good thing is that sponsorships can generally be more easily integrated and more specific to the audience than just the ads that are put there by Google and YouTube on their own. So if I'm creating a video, and let's say I have 4 designated ad spots, 1 in the beginning, 1 at the end, and 2 in the middle, then if I say, you know what, I'm gonna take one of those that I would normally run a Google ad or a YouTube ad on, right? Like let YouTube put those skippable ads on like this. I would remove that and put up a sponsored spot. I know for a fact the ads you're seeing are more relevant to you because I don't pick sponsors that aren't relevant to you. So they can sometimes be easier integrated and more relevant and helpful to the actual viewer of the video, because hopefully most people, most creators are using sponsors that actually make sense with their audience. And to kind of round out the good here, generally, for most creators, especially small creators, you're probably going to make more money with a sponsored ad spot than with Google AdSense. Also, it allows you to monetize that content earlier than that 1,000 subscriber and 4,000 watch time hour requirement by YouTube. This isn't always the case. You could have a video that does really well and has really high performing and high paying ads on it that pays you more over the lifetime than the sponsors did that paid you to put their spots in your videos. But a lot of times it can be more money than what you would make on that Google AdSense spot if you left it there. So, I mean, that's kind of the good, honestly. If I really kind of round it up to what I think the good parts of working with sponsors is. Now, the bad. We've already talked a little bit about the bad, and that was kind of the point of talking about that beforehand. But some of the bad are that the viewers can kind of frown on it. They can say, you know what, I don't like this being on your content. And this being on your content stops me from watching your content. And in that scenario, it may not be the best situation. So looking and seeing that, there is a big correlation between when I started using sponsors and when I started seeing my channel dip, which I don't think is the main reason, but seeing that there is a time correlation makes me kind of think that it could definitely be contributing, right? And for me personally, I would much rather focus on the quality of my content and even putting more content out onto the platform and giving y'all more of what you want to then make more money with AdSense, but also, sell my own things. Again, sponsorships are pretty low line item on my monthly income. And so for me, it doesn't make sense if it's running my subscribers off or running my viewers off to keep doing it when I can make more money doing something else anyway. Okay, another thing that I would classify in bad and not ugly, but is kind of related to the ugly that I'm gonna talk about here in a minute. Having sponsors can seem forced. Especially if we're trying to find a way to natively integrate the sponsor in the content. Like, it can seem like a really forced scenario, and that's not going to read well to the viewer. And also as a creator, it's going to feel really icky, and also, you won't put your heart into it. So that can definitely be a bad when the content starts to feel forced because of the sponsor's requirements or things that you have to say, or the fact that you wanted to create video A, but you needed sponsor A to go in that, and they don't really fit well together. So it can definitely seem forced. Okay, so I know this is a long video, but I feel like I needed to talk all about this. And we have really got to talk about the ugly. And this is the number one reason why I am backing away from sponsorships going forward. Number two would be that I see it in my analytics hurting my channel. And number three would be that you guys told me that you don't love them, right? But this is absolutely number one. And that is that sponsors can be really hard to work with and put certain parameters around your content that feels controlling. And as a content creator, I'm not here for that. I don't like to be controlled. I don't like to be told what to do. I know what works best for my audience, and it's almost insulting that a sponsor wouldn't see that. And so even the best sponsors I've had, because there have definitely been some really, really, really good ones, even the best sponsors I've had have had requirements around what I have to say or how many times I have to talk about them or whatever. But the worst ones have been even worse than that. And this is my channel. This is my channel, this is my content, and I create content that's good for you. And if a sponsor is gonna try and dictate what I say, how I say it, when I say it, how long I say it, and all the things, it's not going to come off authentic. And also it's not gonna be helpful for you. I had one brand that reached out to work with me. What I knew would work best was to integrate them into a certain video where it made sense to show off their product. And they were super good with that. It was awesome, cool, yeah, let's do it. And when I sent them the video for approval, because again, sponsors are generally going to want to approve your content. Now, not all of them, and I would highly suggest if you're working with sponsors that you pick ones that don't require approval and that trust you as a creator, because personally, I feel like those are the ones that are going to be the most beneficial all around for you, for the viewer, and for the sponsor, because you know what works best for your audience, right? But in most scenarios, you do have to submit your video, or at least the sponsored part of your video, to a brand for them to approve it. So as I'm sending this to this brand for them to approve it, they're like, oh yeah, we don't like this. And basically we're like, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z were bananas requests. Let's say that Swingline was the sponsor. They were not. So, and they sent me this stapler and they were like, hey, do a 30-second spot on this stapler, blah, 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 right? And I do it and I'm talking about how awesome it is, blah, blah, blah. And then they come back and they're like, oh no, you know what? We actually really want you to show every single like working part of the stapler. Like we need you to open it. We need you to open it. We need you to open it like you're going to put staples in it. We need you to show the spring. We need you to count how many staples go in here and like video that whole process. So like do it by fives and say, show on the video that there are like 69 spots for staples. Then we need you to close it back and close it. And then we actually need you to staple something. And then we need you to show like B-roll of the swing line. And we need you to do all of this as part of our agreement, which wasn't in the agreement to begin with. So that's just an example, but that's almost exactly what was happening with this particular sponsor. And I did some of the things they asked for in a second iteration of the ad spot in that particular video. They still were like, no, you know, and at this point I really wanted to push the video that they were supposed to be in out. So I cut them out completely and pushed it out into the world, and it did really, really well. And their spot would have done really well in that, but that was their loss, right? So I was like, well, that's fine, but I have to push this piece of content out into the world. And so your spot's gonna have to go in another one because you're being so finicky, right? So they came back the third time, and they were basically like, one, super picky with how I showed the things, but also two, added more things to the list of things I had to show. Okay, so maybe they were like, oh, you moved the stapler around too much, or maybe the lighting wasn't just perfect, or the focus was on your face, not the swing line logo. And then they added, oh, we want you to staple one piece of paper, and then we also want you to staple 100 pieces of paper and show the camera how it all works, right? So this was kind of the scenario, and at that point, I literally, and my team did, we literally emailed back and we were like, send us a box. We'll send this back to you. I don't want it. I don't want it for that much trouble. I don't want it or any money involved or any sponsored spot or anything for that much trouble on me, because that was ridiculous. Like there was no point in showing all of those random things about this particular product. But also two, it would have not been authentic at all to my brand. And three, y'all would have been like, what the hell is she spending 49 minutes of this video talking about a swing line stapler for? You know, again, Swingline was not this sponsor, but just an example that I had laying on my desk. Honestly though, that's ugly for me. I don't want that much control on my content. If a sponsor's going to pay me, you know, X amount of dollars, I can likely make that same amount of money with my own products. You know, if I were in the middle of a video and I was like, hey, I have this like free download, and then you download the thing for free, and then a month from now you buy one of my courses, that's going to make me more money than having a sponsor on a piece of content, and that's okay with me. So this book, if you have not gotten this book, it's a great book if you are interested in being a YouTuber, and I will put a link below in the description to Amazon, but it's by my friend Daryl Eves, and the intro is written by Mr. Beast. And in the intro, and I'm not going to read it all to you, someone sent me a picture of this kind of excerpt right when I was talking about how sponsors don't get how to work with creators particularly well, right when this book came out, and I have it like dog-eared because it's so good. So Mr. Beast in this is talking about how brands want to work with creators, blah, blah, blah. And part of what he says is a brand should say, here's a bunch of money, do what you do to connect with your viewers as you've done on literally hundreds of videos with hundreds of millions of views. Do what you think would work best to get our brand talked about or our product sold. We trust you. He's saying that's what brands should do, but that's not what most brands do. Most brands are super picky with how you do every little intricate piece of the sponsored spot or even your video in general. And so when we really dive down into the good, the bad, the ugly, I don't want to do sponsors. Like, that's fine. Especially after hearing your comments about it. And I think a lot of it for me was that I went so long without having sponsors, and then I just had a bunch. And the bunch were all of the same sponsors or whatever, and it just kind of, you know, got old, and I get that. But I also need to say that sponsorships and having sponsors is a very, very normal part of content creation. And also is how these creators are likely paying their bills. Most people, when they get started on YouTube or on some kind of content creation platform, they are relying on Google AdSense, which is like nothing if they're a small creator, sponsors, and affiliates. That's it. Now, I do think that most YouTubers need to diversify their income, and I've talked a lot about that, but That's normally what they're relying on. And I don't think there's a single thing wrong with sponsors. But one, I want you to be really informed if you choose to work with them. And two, I want us to kind of break this idea that sponsors are bad. We're watching free content on the internet. Like this video you're watching right now is free. Honestly, for you to have any opinion on what's in it or how it goes or what I say or how I act or whatever, it's not really like, do you want a refund for this $0 video you just watched? It's not really a thing. People think it's a thing, but whatever, that's not the point. My point is creators are taking the time to make you content, to make content that you are going to enjoy watching, that's going to entertain you, that's going to educate you in whatever format that looks like. And so if sponsors are something that rubs you the wrong way, I would highly encourage you to kind of change your mindset around that. While I have personally decided that sponsors are not the best for my channel, my audience, my content, blah, 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 and my workflow, that doesn't mean that they're bad. And it also doesn't mean that we should, be mad at creators for taking on sponsors. It's how they're paying their bills. And if they can't pay their bills, they're going to go get a regular job, and that regular job is going to mean that they can no longer continue to put content on the YouTubes for you that you find entertaining. So that kind of wraps it up. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's money, but people may not like it. And you may feel really controlled by the sponsors. But again, it's normal. So you do you. I'd love to have a conversation down below in the comments about this. Like, do you like sponsors? Do you use sponsors? Do you want to use sponsors? Do you have questions about it? I'm happy to answer anything that you have. And until next time, bye y'all.